Although it's constantly in the news, there is perhaps no country that people know as little about as North Korea. The communist state's government does everything it can to shut its citizens out from the outside world. And yet, there is probably no other country that has such strange characteristics, traditions, and rules. So in this video, we present 8 totally strange things that exist only in North Korea. Let's start with something that shows that North Korea is in its own time in the literal sense of the word. But why? In 2015, Kim Jong-un's government decided to turn back the clock by 30 minutes in his country. This meant it was half an hour ahead of Chinese time and half an hour behind Japanese and South Korean time. The reason was the so-called Pyongyang program, which was intended to celebrate the 70th anniversary of Japan's liberation in 2015. However, as the other time zones always differ from each other by exactly 60 minutes, this arrangement regularly leads to confusion between diplomats of neighboring countries and those of North Korea. But it's not just the time that's odd. In 1997, the Yuche calendar was introduced as a new way of calculating years. While almost all countries in the world use the birth of Jesus Christ as year 0, North Korea's calendar begins in 1912, the year in which the country's first head of state, Kim Il-sung, was born. According to this calendar, in North Korea, today is not 2023, but the year 111. But there are other things that don't exist anywhere else in the world. One of them is fake cities. It has long been no secret that North Korea gives a different impression on the outside than it actually is on the inside. For example, tourists and journalists are only allowed in areas where they meet people pretending to be happy, or it is claimed that the pandemic never happened in this country. However, when it was recently revealed that the government built entire cities that were deliberately left empty, many were completely shocked. According to some reports, for example, there is the town of Kijongdong near the border with South Korea. At first glance, everything looks perfect there. There are wide main streets, tall skyscrapers, and even a giant ring-shaped building in the center of the city. But in reality, no one can move there. But why? First, the majority of the population would probably be too poor to afford living in such a neighborhood. Second, cities like Kijongdong are only supposed to be used to show the outside world that there is such a strong economy that they can build cities where no one even lives. Although this argument seems very absurd, it is not the only phenomenon that shows how contradictory North Korea is. A perfect example is Samtaeng, a fast food chain that at first glance can be compared to McDonald's or Burger King. It is particularly popular in the capital Pyongyang, and many North Koreans regularly buy burgers, chicken, hot dogs, or smoothies there just like in the US. However, considering how much the North Korean government despises the US and the Western lifestyle, it is even more surprising that they offer a chain that provides the people with a similar offering to Western competitors. But that is not all. Samtaeng is also rumored to be selling its own, relatively modern smartphones to the population, as is the South Korean company Samsung. While it is not known exactly what features these smartphones have, as they are not available outside of the communist state, it can be assumed that the population will probably not have access to the outside world through these devices either. Nevertheless, every owner of a Samtaeng smartphone is the owner of a globally unique device. We continue with a feature that for a long time was thought to exist in only one country in the world, India. There, society is divided into a so-called caste system, which informally regulates what one's place in society is. Recently, however, it has emerged that North Korea also seems to think in terms of a caste system, although the theory of communism actually states that all people are equal. In North Korea, however, society seems to be divided into 3 layers or castes. In Caste 3 are the poor people who do simple farm work and are completely uneducated. This group enjoys almost no respect in the rest of society and people avoid being seen with them. The second group represents something like the middle class of society. This group seems to include, for example, teachers or office workers who have no political influence but are important to the economy and education because of their work. Anyone who wants to belong to the first caste, and therefore to be as close as possible to the political scene, must be as loyal as possible to the government and the party throughout his or her life. through a kind of point system. One can rise to higher circles and sometimes even be rewarded by the government with limousines, trips to ski resorts, or luxury items. Some, such as the longtime state television news anchorwoman, have even received a luxury apartment from Kim Jong-un himself. However, only very few manage to do so, which is due to a phenomenon we will explain. It is no secret that numerous people have tried to escape from the almost completely sealed North Korea over the past decades. But there is also the phenomenon that some of those who have managed to get out of the country want to return completely voluntarily. The reason for this is simple. Those who leave North Korea are not only putting themselves in danger, the family members who stay behind are now under constant surveillance by the government. In order to prevent family members of a fugitive from fleeing to the south, they are regularly beaten and badly harassed. They then report these acts to the refugees, who must return to the country to save their families. In some cases, even third-generation descendants are blacklisted if one of their family members has dared to flee. Anyone living in such a family will most likely never make it into the socially recognized ranks. However, the state has its hand in other areas as well. For example, in the hairstyles of North Koreans. Compared to other countries, you are not allowed to just cut your hair the way you want. Every woman in North Korea has to choose from one of the 18 allowed haircuts when she gets a haircut. For men, only 10 hairstyles are allowed. However, anyone who thinks that many North Koreans would imitate their country's most famous hairstyle is wrong. The law states that no one is allowed to copy Kim Jong-un's haircut. And to make sure that doesn't happen, local police conduct regular checks to ensure that hair is cut properly. Another thing that will never be possible in Kim Jong-un's empire is to play basketball properly. This is despite the fact that the North Korean leader is an avid basketball fan and even meets regularly with former NBA player Dennis Rodman. So you would think that the people of North Korea would at least be able to enjoy basketball like the rest of the world, but far from it. To convince the people that they are playing something very special, the rules for official basketball tournaments in North Korea are very different. A classic three-point shot counts as 8 points. On the other hand, when someone misses a free throw, 1 point is deducted. And any shot taken in the last 8 seconds of the game, from wherever it was taken, also counts for 8 points. This is intended to create more tension and to make the final phase as dramatic as possible. Finally, we come to a topic that unites us all, and that is going to the toilet. Although it is well known that sanitation and hygiene conditions are generally worse in some countries than in others, nowhere is it as bad as in North Korea. Not long ago, a woman called Yeonmi Park, who fled to South Korea in 2007, reported on conditions in the communist north. Especially in rural areas, it is said that there are hardly any toilets, which means that men and women usually have to relieve themselves in so-called latrines behind their homes. However, it is said that there is a shortage of both toilet paper and running water for cleaning. The state of cleanliness is therefore disastrous in many places, and people are forced to wash in rivers. What is not missing, however, is the presence of Kim Jong-un. His picture is said to hang not only in classrooms and public places, but also in some toilets. Although this cannot be verified exactly, it fits with the rumor that Kim Jong-un has 2 employees abroad who always carry his toilet with him.